People are therefore being essentially trained to be racist.
She said people are being trained to be racist. That's crazy.
I've just finished researching and writing my final chapter, which is looking at the impact of unconscious bias training, equity, diversity, and inclusion training, and that supports very much what you have just said. It so profoundly doesn't work. It re-entrenches stereotypes. If somebody doesn't have, if somebody goes into this training, say a white person who has very strongly anti-racist views, then they're likely to be convinced by a D'Angelo style of training that it is virtuous for them to believe that they have white supremacist views. They are asked to accept that they believe black people to be inferior.
So what she's talking about now, and if you don't know who this woman practically works at a company, and she's talking about how unconscious bias training, and some people call it DEI training, but it's called unconscious bias training, will ironically make you more racist. Meaning that if you come into this training at a job or at a workforce and you aren't racist in the slightest, just undergoing this type of training will make you believe that, in instance, she's talking to white people, so it will make a white person believe that they are more racist or that they have white privilege, even if they are the least racist person or even if they supposedly do not have said privilege. Let's see why she says that, and I hope you enjoy this video.
Now, I don't see a difference between convincing yourself to believe this and actually believing it. This is people are therefore being essentially trained to be racist, whereas other people going into
she said people are being trained to be racist. That's crazy. So that's basically what she's touching on throughout this video. She's gonna break it down. So, this is gonna be a good one. I really want to know why she says that, because I haven't even heard much about this training, but maybe y'all know about it. If you do, comment down below.
I cite all this in my new book, but other people going into this training who do hold some racist ideas that they have some shame about are likely to come out of the training feeling somewhat justified, because the D'Angelo style this isn't about being good or bad. Racism is inevitable. It's unconscious. You can't help it. And they think, oh well, can't help it then. This is normal. They then feel more right in their views, whereas people of racial minority coming out of these groups then tend to assess the level of racism and prejudice in society generally as considerably higher than they had previously believed it to be as a result of the training. So it's caused a considerable, and I don't want to link the US and the UK. I mean, as Tommy Olade's wonderful new book, This Is Not America, reminds us, we cannot simply compare these two countries, lump them in together. We have different histories, different experiences.
So what she's talking about now is saying through this training, people are becoming more racist, which is pretty strange. I don't even know how to respond to that.
But the overall impact of it has just been has been found to be that the workplaces that do this kind of unconscious bias training have fewer employees who are black or of racial minority than those who don't do it.
That's so interesting. That is, I think as well, another example as you were speaking actually came to mind. I've actually seen a lot of increase online, particularly, but I think more broadly, in race and IQ discussion. And I think, again, a lot of the identity politics advocates have laid the groundwork for that. So they essentially say that the only reason for disparities is because it's because of racism, and there's no other explanation.
And my problem with this is, and of course it exists, I don't even think that's a I hope that's not a question for you. I hope y'all know it exists. But if you shine the light on an issue long enough, you're going to make the issue seem broader or bigger than it actually is. And I see that happening a lot in society. And I'm going to tell you why. Over the past 24 years, and answer honestly, over the past 24 years, what period in time was racism focused on the most? And the reason I ask this question is because the answer should be the earlier part of the 24 years. It should be 2000 to 2002 or 2003. That's what a normal person would say, because further back was when we were closer to the Jim Crow era, closer to the Civil Rights Movement, closer to actual slavery. However, when you actually think about it, the time where it was focused on the most is weirdly now. And the reason I bring that up is because it's now because people are focusing more attention towards it, whether or not it's happening in society. So that's what I mean by, if you keep shining a light on an issue, it's just going to seem bigger. And this is happening in their study.
And there's other people, like, of course, people like yourself and I, and, the Saw report in the UK, which tried to say that actually there's lots of different reasons for racial disparities. Whilst racism could be a factor, there's other factors as well. But I've heard a whole new group, still quite small, but trying to essentially say, well, the real reason racial disparities exist is because Black people are less intelligent genetically, or genetically inferior. And I think that partly because of the way in which the discussion around trying to understand racial disparities has been so narrow and so binary, again, it's created the groundwork for people that essentially want to come up with their own explanation, their own catch-all explanation that makes sense of racial disparities. So I think, a few years down the line, I think I've seen a lot more. Some parts, whilst some elements of the discussion has improved, I've seen a much uglier side that have come out from the fixation on racial identity.
Yes. I mean, this is what I've been hearing, and obviously there's a selection bias with the people who come to me, because nobody's coming to me to tell me that there isn't a problem with critical social justice in their workplace. But this attitude that, I mean, 1 month, 60% of the Brits who came to counterweight to talk about anti-racist training were Black, and there's such a highly disproportionate number of Black Brits, even higher than South Asian Brits. South Asian Brits are also overrepresented, but Black Brits particularly. Really, so many of them that I now have half a dozen template letters of people that say, please stop racializing me at work.
And this is very true. This is what I talk about a lot on my channel. When you focus on race, I get it. I get what people are trying to do if they're doing it from a good point of view, is like saying, well, you're disparaged, we're trying to help you, but you're not. You're just shining a light on minorities when you're saying, oh, we're going to give you this because you're Black. First of all, what makes you think I need this based off of my skin color? It would be a different thing if you're looking at an impoverished community, but what people like to do is equate Blackness with poverty. When they say, well, Black people or minorities need this stuff right here, that's not necessarily true. Just because someone is a different skin color doesn't mean that they automatically deserve or are required to get more resources. And it makes people uncomfortable because not only does it create a tension within other communities, it creates tension within the Black community. For example, if there's a new service that says, and I'm making this up, this is not actually happening, but this is just based off of real life, we're just going to start hiring 50% more Black people, and a Black person happens to get that job, now the question or the narrative is they may not deserve it. And people aren't going to say that out loud, but that's the narrative going around. Even if the person who got the job actually deserves it, there's this uncalled for narrative that they may not deserve it because a company decided to hire 50% more of a race. It's just unnecessary tension and attention on a race. It's just weird.
I don't want to be assumed that I agree with all the views of Ibram X. Kendi because of the colour of my skin. I don't want to have a racialized relationship with my colleagues. I recently, in a recent essay, I cited one of the letters from a young guy in which he said, if you think, because they were going through the critical race theory lens, that black people have a greater competence to speak about race and racism, listen to me when I am telling you that calling all white people ignorant, racist because of their colour of their skin is not going to end well.
And that's the dumbest thing. And that's another thing. That's just so stupid. It doesn't make much sense to me. If you look at black people and say, just because you're black, you automatically know more about racism or race in general, that's a very ignorant statement. And I'm just going to keep it, I'm going to be honest. The first reason why it's ignorant is because people actually go to school and get master's degrees and PhDs in studies of race or in researching. So they naturally know more about a topic. So they would know more about any race in general than what I'm saying is if they go get a PhD or a master's, they just know more about the topic. So saying a race knows more about people who studied an area is just dumb. Another reason is your race doesn't give you secret knowledge of an area in life just because. So I'm going to end this video here because this is crazy. And if you want a part 2, let me know. But this is insane. That's LFR Jojo, and I'll see you guys.